Hi, everyone. If you're on YouTube, I am going to share this across various Facebook groups. So it takes a minute or two. If you want, you can go ahead and forward a couple of minutes, maybe 5 minutes forward, and then the content will actually begin. So thank you for joining me. I will be with you all in one moment. Thanks so much. All right, I'm gonna get started sharing this across the various groups. So that takes, again, a couple of minutes. So if you're on YouTube, just go ahead and forward about 5 minutes ahead, and then you'll get to the content. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Grassroots Voices Emergency Edition. I'm Robin. I'm going to share this live across to the various Facebook groups. So that does take about a couple minutes for me to do that. So please just sit tight. And I'm going to get started with all of the information in a moment. But we have a very, very, very urgent issue at hand. This is why I decided to come on today and to speak with everybody so you are aware of what's going on and what could happen at any moment here in Georgia that could alter the course of the race as far as fundraising is concerned. So give me just about, I would say like 2 minutes to go ahead and share this across the various political Facebook groups. It'd be great if you can share it as well, especially if you are in Georgia or you support Stacey Abrams. Make sure to go ahead and like and join our Facebook groups. So just give me one moment and then I'm going to get started. Thanks again for showing up. We appreciate it. As usual, Brian Kemp is up to his old tricks. So I'm going to try to share some information today so we can either stop them or at least stop some of the damage from being so egregious. Okay, so just give me one moment. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing this episode across the various Facebook groups. If you have friends that you know you interact with in the group, please go ahead and ask them to join us today. Let's see here. Oh, Facebook, they're really just not making it the easiest these days. Okay, here we go. All right, so gonna start sharing this. I'm not gonna maybe share it through all the groups, but just definitely the Georgia ones. So just give me literally maybe a minute or two to finish that. Lots to talk about. Lots of stuff is happening today. Okay, so here I go. So if you're in any of the other groups, if you want to go there and also like this live, that always helps. Okay, I think I got all of our main groups here, and then we'll get started. Okay, all right. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I can share this later. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to just check the comment section. Please feel free to comment or ask questions. I will definitely do my best to get back to everybody. Let's see. Sorry, give me one moment. One more 30 seconds. Okay. All right. So where to begin? Okay, so the last couple of days, first of all, let me introduce myself. So my name is Robin Donaldson. I'm based here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm the founder of Team Stacey Abrams Grassroots for One Georgia. We have over 24,000 members in this Facebook group. Please join our Facebook group. It's under Team Stacey Abrams Grassroots for One Georgia. We also have sister groups as well. Please consider joining some of our sister groups. I'll try to pull them up at the end, but there's Stacey Abrams Fair Fight Club, Team Georgia Blue, Defend and Reelect Warnock and other senators, the rural Georgia, African-American rural Georgia Facebook group as well. And I'm sure there's some others that are out there that I'm forgetting. But make sure to join those groups. We have done a lot of organizing over the last couple of years here in Georgia, mostly and across the country, and we are gearing up for the midterms. Okay, so the reason I have a Facebook Live show called Grassroots Voices. We had season 1 in 2021. Between August and December, we had over 21 episodes and guests, and we're going to start back up for season 2 later on the spring, but I'm trying to get some type of break, and it's so hard to do that because we're already in full swing with the midterms. But season 2 will come back later on in the spring. So if you have guest ideas or suggestions for show topics, please email me at grassrootsvoices999@gmail.com. All right, so where to begin? So obviously Stacey Abrams is running for governor here in Georgia, as well as Senator Warnock is running for re-election, and so many other races that are happening here in Georgia. But the reason I came on today, and the reason I wanted to talk to everybody today, is because Stacey Abrams specifically needs our help. Governor Brian Kemp, he's up to his same old tricks that he normally does, is that he cannot win or compete without changing laws, abusing his power, and not taking out any conflicts of interest when he runs for office. So for those of you who are not familiar with Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State in 2018, and he was running against Stacey Abrams, who was running for governor as well in Georgia. And Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State, and he refused to recuse himself as Secretary of State or step down. Instead, he chose to use his office to serve his self-interest and to tip the scales of the election in his favor, because he was Secretary of State and he was controlling and was in charge of how elections were going to be administered and things like that. So Brian Kemp in 2018, when Stacey Abrams was running, she would have been the first Black woman governor in the history of the United States. Brian Kemp, when he was Secretary of State of Georgia, he was behind one of the largest massive voter purges in the history of the United States. He purged 300,000 people within a day or so, and then mostly people of color, Black people and people of color, young people too. And then he went on again to run, be Secretary of State while he was also running for governor. So Stacey Abrams likes to use the example of Brian Kemp was attempting to be the player as well as the referee of the competition. So now he is governor, and now he's trying to do something different. He has a very self-serving scheme happening in the General Assembly, and it poses a real threat to Stacey Abrams' campaign. So if you have not already, if you are in support of Stacey Abrams or any other candidate, you have to go to their website and go ahead and give your email address to them, sign up for their emails, join the campaign by signing up with your email. So that way you are in the loop, you know what's going on, and they know who their supporters are, and then they know how to find you. And you can also, then tell them how you want to be involved. So that's one thing to do if you haven't already. So sign up at stacyabrams.com. Also, if you have not already made a grassroots donation, it's so important that you do that. And that's one of the reasons I'm here today to talk about this. So Brian Kemp has this scheme happening in the General Assembly here in Georgia that will give he and his allies the opportunity to push legislation that would ban fundraising by challengers during the legislative session, because right now Georgia is in their legislative session. So this is why I'm going to go over some reasons why this is so important for you to know and to understand what's happening here. So if this legislation goes through, that would ban fundraising by challengers in Georgia during the legislative session, because Kemp is also in session too. It would cause a huge setback for Stacey Abrams as well as other candidates, and it would be a huge win for Governor Kemp. So the current Georgia state legislature is in session, and the reason I'm saying this is so urgent is because literally this can happen at any time. He can sign this, or this bill can pass and he can sign it into law. And we saw how quickly the Georgia state legislature moved when they passed all of those oppressive voter suppression bills. So right now, the Georgia legislature is currently in session until April. So if this bill passes that prevents any fundraising by candidates until the Georgia state legislature is out of session, that means Stacey and other candidates could not, and this includes Republicans too. So this is not about a Democrat Republican thing per se. This is going to impact all candidates. This means that the candidates would not be able to fundraise until the session ends in April. So if this bill goes into effect, it would stop fundraising for nearly 2 months immediately. And the reason this is so important and the reason it's so important that you donate early is because this money is how candidates are able to hire staff. It's how they're able to do their mailers and call scripts and texting and all of that other stuff. And there's a ton of voter education that has to take place in Georgia and across the country about voting, because there's all these new voter suppression laws. So if these candidates cannot raise money for 2 months, that's absolutely going to impact their budget, their ability to hire people, and their ability for them to exercise their strategies. So again, this doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. Another way that this bill can set back Stacey Abrams as well as others is that Kemp can call a special session of the legislature whenever he wants, or he can extend the regular session. So I just told you how, if this bill passes and goes into effect immediately, candidates won't be able to fundraise for 2 months, but then Kemp can also extend that regular session or call a special session. And this could even push out the fundraising, further into May, like going towards the summer. So this would give Kemp sole discretion on when his opponents can and cannot fundraise. So on a whim, he could just take away people's right to invest in these campaigns. So of course, it's not only about that. Kemp always has a way that it's going to tilt in his favor. So all while this is happening, if this fundraiser ban goes through, all while this is happening, Kemp, he can keep fundraising unlimited funds into his leadership committee. So he can continue to fundraise through his leadership committee, which is a fundraising vehicle that he and only he is currently able to use, because he signed this into law, this leadership committee. And then anybody who's challenging Kemp or any other candidates, they could not raise any money at the time that the legislature is in session. So pretty much Kemp could have a single donor help him raise $10 million, but then the grassroots and everybody else who maybe want to give $1 or even $10 could not give that money to the Stacey Abrams campaign or to any other candidates. Yeah. How is it fair? Alicia Peterson is asking. It's not fair. And they know that, and that's why they're trying to do this. Now they're doing this because there is, huge momentum still here in Georgia the Stacey Abrams campaign, when they released their fundraising numbers, she raised $9 million within about 2 months, or a month and a half, 2 months from when she announced in December that she was running for governor. So she raised this $9 million, $9 million. And of that, for that 9 million, they had 100,000 donors in Georgia, and I'm sure other parts of the country too, but definitely a lot of Georgians. And Kemp, he raised $7 million, but he raised $7 million over almost like 6 months. Stacey raised it in 2 months. And she did it over a holiday season because she announced maybe a couple of weeks before Christmas. So she has a huge ability to fundraise, and they know that. I mean, Fair Fight was able to raise $100 million over the course of about a year and a half, 2 years, and they put that to good use. So Kemp, the Republicans, they know this. They know that she can raise money. They know that there is a lot of momentum behind Stacey. There's a lot of momentum behind Georgia, and so this is why they are now attempting to change the laws. David Perdue, who's also running for governor in the primary, Republican primary against Kemp, he has barely even raised $1 million. So this is why it's so urgent today to understand what's happening, because this legislation to ban fundraising until the Georgia State Legislature is out of session, and then Kemp being allowed to continue raising as much money as he wants through his leadership committee, this can severely hamper Stacey Abrams' campaign as well as other candidates and their abilities to reach Georgia voters, because that's going to allow Kemp to build a huge financial advantage if, thanks to his exclusive leadership committee that he signed into law. So the Abrams campaign is fighting back on this, as well as, various voters. And again, this is something that impacts the Democrats and Republicans. So it's really important that if you can max out on your donations for Stacey Abrams or any other, candidates, Democratic candidates here in Georgia, please do it as soon as possible, because if this bill passes and it's signed into law, I don't know if it's passed yet or if it's about to pass, but Kemp can sign it into law right away. If you can, max out on your contribution for Stacey Abrams and other Democratic candidates. Please do it as soon as you can today. I mean, this could happen in 10 minutes. This could happen in 2 days. We don't know. It could happen in a week. We don't know. But once it happens, then immediately the fundraising will have to stop for at least 2 months, which would, again, be a huge hamper. So I'm coming on here asking you to please go to StaceyAbrams.com, either max out if you can. If you cannot max out, then, just donate whatever you can do here between now and when this bill is signed into law. Make sure that you are signed up with her campaign, because things are coming quickly down the pipeline. And, things like this have the ability to just, change the impact of the race within a moment. So if you're in Georgia, please encourage your family and friends and your associates, your Facebook friends, pass around that StaceyAbrams.com fundraising link and ask people to max out their contribution if they can. If they cannot, that's okay. Make a grassroots donation, give whatever that you can give, and do it sooner than later, because again, fundraising has the potential to be cut off, and then we won't be able to fundraise again until the spring. And so this is super, super important. If you have been receiving the emails from the Abrams campaign, they have been hammering away on this past week, and it's a very real urgent concern. All right, so I'm going to move on. If somebody is watching now, if you can just go to the chat, because this is like an urgent emergency session, so I don't have my kind of assistant producer from Grassroots Voices helping me today. So if you can just drop the donation link for the Abrams campaign, Warnock, Lucy McBath, B. Wynn, that would be incredible, or any other Democratic candidates, but definitely if you could put that StaceyAbrams.com link into the chat, I would really appreciate that. All right, what else do we have going on? So there's been 3 more anti-voting bills that have been introduced and in the Georgia State Legislature. I'm going to pull up that information right now. So this is on top of the 15 anti-voting bills that were introduced in Georgia in 2021. So last year we had bills that were going to reduce voting access, making election administration harder, and laws and laws that were going to allow subverting of local control over elections. And now we have 3 other anti-voting bills that are coming down the pipeline this year in 2022. And they're fueled by the big lie and the conspiracy and big lie that this voter fraud is what kept Trump from winning and Joe Biden what helped him win. So they're the anti-voting election bills that were introduced. There's SB 517 here in Georgia. They're trying to repeal the no excuse absentee ballot vote by mail. Like they wanted to have a no excuse vote by, or sorry, let me back it up. They wanted, at first there was a no excuse vote by mail. So if you just needed to vote by mail, that was your choice. Then they wanted to change that in 2021, where there would be specific reasons, that people could vote by mail. So that didn't go through. So we still have the no excuse vote by mail ability. Now they're trying to repeal that, so people will need an excuse to vote by mail. They're also trying to repeal and shorten early voting hours, and shorten early voting days. They're also trying to complete drop box bans. So before, here in Georgia, there were drop boxes that were located outside of various local government buildings, libraries, things like that. You could drop your ballot off. It was very secure. It was nailed down into the concrete, security cameras. Now they have it where they've moved the drop boxes inside. First, they've cut some of them, and then they've moved them inside buildings. And you can only drop your ballot off between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. In some of these buildings, which means if you are working during that time and you need to drop off your ballot, you can. Now they want to completely ban all drop boxes. So there just aren't any drop boxes available in general. Also, they want to have never-ending audits. There's another bill, HB 933, never-ending audits, which means anyone can continue challenging and questioning the results of the election using that big lie of voter fraud. So even if it's from, years ago. So there are people who still want to question the 2020 results. And here we are in 2022. Well, when this happens, it is a great strain financially, staff-wise, et cetera, for some of these county board of elections to be able to do these constant and fraudulent audits that are claiming fraud that have, and it's been proven time and time over that fraud did not take place in Georgia in regards to the 2020 and 2021 elections. So this can start to become, again, a financial burden. If you look at, different counties, they might already be strapped for, financially. And if they consistently have these independent audits and challenges, it can take money away from them being able to administer elections this year. So that's another bill that they're working on. So it's really important that we just, stay vigilant and contact your state reps and contact your boards of elections and start questioning these things. Also, it's really important for us to understand that we have to get more involved in going to these board of election meetings. And when I say go to these meetings, some of them are in person, but then there's a lot of meetings that are happening via Zoom in the virtual space. But we need people to show up at these meetings, because sometimes your presence is just enough to let people know that your decision makers know that you're paying attention and that you are engaged. You can sometimes leave a public comment at some of these meetings. Fair Fight Action, they are looking for volunteers and people to to, go to some of these county board of election meetings and to leave comments and to ask questions. And so someone gave the example that, they have a group that have been, going to these board of election meetings, and just by them being there and sharing their comments, the specific county board of election, they were getting ready to vote whether or not to have voting on like a Saturday, I think it was a Saturday or Sunday. And at first it was like they were, looking like they weren't going to allow it. But then when people showed up and listened and shared their comments, I think they just either allowed the voting or they just didn't vote on it at that time. So it really does have an impact. So if you are interested, I'll be posting a link once I get off of here where you can go, or I might even make an event out of it, and then you can go there and sign up. But I'll continue to talk about this. So again, it's really important to start noticing and finding out, especially in Georgia, what is going in these battleground states: Texas, Arizona, North Carolina, Florida, Wisconsin, I think I said North Carolina, or wherever else in the country. Even if you're not in a battleground state, it's important that you go to these board of election meetings or attend. And again, a lot of them are virtual. Leave a public comment, let them know that you're paying attention, because sometimes that's really all it takes. Let's see. Also, Brad Raffensperger, the current Secretary of State, we got to get rid of him too. We got to get Kemp out. We have to get Raffensperger out. So Secretary of State Raffensperger, he is now pushing for voter fraud investigations without local request. He's also pushing for having Georgia State Patrol, police patrol. He wants them to go to polling locations, and he wants to have them at early voting locations as well as where ballots are being processed. Okay, so clearly or not clearly, the South has a history of voter intimidation against Black voters, people of color, specifically. If you have not taken the time yet, please go and watch the documentary that Stacey Abrams is in and helped to produce. Came out a couple of years ago. It's called All In: Fight for Our Democracy. It's on Amazon Prime. As far as I know, I think that's the only place you can watch it. It is absolutely worth getting a 30-day trial for Amazon, watching this documentary, and then you can just go ahead and cancel your subscription. Go and watch this documentary, excuse me, that connects the dots of voting rights from, the inception of this country to where we are now. We know that there's been a history in the South, which is what led to the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Movement, where violence and intimidation has been used to prevent Black people, brown people from voting, but specifically Black people in this country. And so now here we have the Secretary of State wanting to use police to be at these polling locations. That can absolutely suppress the vote. If you are a person who comes from a marginalized community where there's been issues and tensions with police, or if you are someone from an immigrant community who's a US citizen who wants to vote, but you have some intrepidation about police and how they interact in your community, when you roll up to the voting polls and you see a strong police presence and a strong police presence that might be more menacing or aggressing towards certain groups and certain people, that is not going to make people want to vote or stand in line for 10 hours or anything else. It is intimidating. And again, this is not anything new. It has been, part of the history of this country, and where the state and police, they will use the police in order to control who has access to the ballot. So this is something that Secretary of State of Georgia, Raffensperger, is also trying to push. Next thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to check in with the chat real quick, because then I want to say a few things about redistricting, what's happening here in Georgia. Okay, I see everybody. Okay, Valencia says, which bill allows constant election audits? Let me see here. That is HB 933, HB 933 here in Georgia, which allows the unlimited, never-ending audits. And then that's dangerous because it's burdening certain counties, election officials, and let's see. Yeah, and these requests can be made by third-party conspiracy theorists. And they can claim, if they believed it was a sham election, they can bring an audit. And the counties can barely keep up with already the audits that were happening from 2020. It can continue to go on. And so again, another thing that was in one of these bills, a lot of these counties, every county doesn't have the same budget or same amount of people and everything else. So if you're a small rural county or just a small county and you already don't have enough money to run your elections, then having this additional burden of this audit is really going to cut in, ability to hire more staff or to hire, or to put in certain precautions for COVID and have masks and all of that costs money. And before the counties were allowed to apply for grants, and these are nonpartisan grants. They could apply for grants and receive funding to help them be able to afford to be able to run and administer their elections in their county. Well, the bills from 2021 are now trying to take away third parties, nonpartisan too, third parties that offer these grants to the counties to run these elections. They're trying to say now they can't even take any money from third parties. So that means if you're in a county and you don't have enough money to be able to, administer your election, or if there's a runoff and you don't have that funding to hire more staff or keep the staff you have, that's when we start to see polling locations close. That's when we start to see the long lines because polling locations are closed because they can't afford to pay someone to run them, or if they can't afford the equipment or whatever the case may be, then okay, let's close these polling locations. We know these polling locations are usually closed in Black and brown communities or college campuses and things like that. Then if those polling locations are closed, people have to go vote somewhere else if they even know and they follow through, because if they show up and then they're thinking they're going to be voting one place, some people may not go to the next place to vote because they may not have time to do that because they may have to work or whatever the case may be. So then that's when we start seeing these 10-hour lines and 12-hour lines in certain polling locations. Another thing in the comments, Nicole is saying that police were at polling locations for the 2020 election in Cherokee County. This is already have been happening. And now it's going to be, it's going to be even worse now because they're operating off of this conspiracy theory and lie and January 6th and all of that. And then Nicole was saying, can you point out that after you live the bills? Oh, wait, Nicole, I'm not sure what your other point. So if you can just drop it in the chat one more time. I'm not sure what you're menacing or aggressing towards. I'm not sure what your question is, but certain groups and certain people. Sorry, I'm trying to do like 1,000 things at once here. Okay, so anyway, just keep dropping your comments and questions in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, next thing I wanted to talk about, got all my notes here, redistricting. I'm going to leave that alone for right now. But a good website is Fair Districts Georgia, if you can keep up with them. Long story short, there are a lot of districts that Republicans are drawing the maps. They're not following the rules, they're ignoring the rules. And when it comes to, how the districts are drawn and allowing, nonpartisan maps and things like that. But they're ignoring the rules in some counties. In Gwinnett County, a county here in Georgia, which is very diverse, and it's actually going to look like how the United States, is going towards this minority majority. Gwinnett County is already starting to look like that. It's one of the most diverse counties in Georgia, maybe also in the country. And so the white the Board of Commissions map is trying to keep this white majority Republican leaning district. In fact, they are drawing out Black members. And there was a woman in Gwinnett County. She is the first Black woman commissioner in 200 years. She has been drawn out of her district in Gwinnett. So we have to keep an eye on redistricting. I don't want to get too deep into it right now because it's a lot of information and it's personally hard for me to follow as well as sometimes, but Fair Districts Georgia, that's a great organization. Donate to them, volunteer. They will come to your church or your meetings and organizations to talk about redistricting and what we can do to make sure that we have fair maps. There are lawsuits that are going on in various parts of the country, in Georgia too, where they are challenging the Republican maps. So we might see some changes there, but we'll keep everybody posted. Okay, I'm gonna just check the comments and questions real quick. Okay. Another thing that is happening is the attack on public education and education in general. So I do have some messaging regarding how to speak about honest and accurate history laws / CRT. If you want those, please DM me and I can send you the link. I don't want to post it on social, but I'm happy to share that with you. But there are political and politically motivated attacks happening here in Georgia and across the country that are impacting teachers, students, and parents, and trying to pit all of these groups against one another. And it's very politically self-serving. So here in Georgia, they're trying to extend the strategy to push bills that are going to censor classroom materials / school funding and intimidate educators and restrict access to accurate and honest history and education. So Brian Kemp, he supports these bills, the governor of Georgia. The two bills, HB 1084 and SB 449. So HB 1084 bill restricts honest and accurate history and allows investigations and punishments of school districts that violate these harmful rules. So again, it's very subjective. If someone teaches something and it's very subjective, what's accurate and honest these days, apparently. So in one of these bills, they want to slash up to 20% of funding for a school district in schools if they somehow don't follow these arbitrary rules. So if you think about a school district that's already struggling financially, especially under the pandemic, and we've been hearing about all kinds of stuff regarding education, teachers not wanting to come back, students, being years behind in their education, everything else. If they already are having funding or financial strains due to COVID, and even before COVID, many of them had financial strains. And then if a teacher or someone teaches something that violates, these rules or whatever, then that school district can lose 20% of their funding. That could take out some school districts, or it could take out some public schools within those school districts because they were already struggling. So I do think personally, this is just my personal opinion. I feel like this is part of a greater effort to defund and take money out of the public education system in order to push charter schools and these private charter schools. Let's see. And then we have HB 449 here in Georgia. This bill is designed to intimidate teachers and divide teachers and parents by encouraging parents to dispute curriculum and lesson plans and pushing burdensome new requirements for teachers in school districts. So as if teachers don't have enough on them, and most teachers in this country are also parents, so they're dealing with their own life and their children going to school or not going to school or going virtual. So now the little bit of support that a lot of teachers even have in the first place, now they're going to be burdened and feeling intimidated about what they're teaching, because now that can just be challenged. facts and truth just they don't carry the same weight in some places anymore. So that's an additional burden. So there are anti-education bills that are coming out in Georgia and across the country. Forsyth County has had a book ban, Forsyth County here in Georgia. And there's a concerted effort again, to censor these classrooms. So again, if you want that messaging on how to speak about CRT, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to give in to the Republican strategy of talking about something that was never even a thing. CRT was never a thing, in grade schools, high schools, and et cetera. So it's really important to understand how to talk about this in a way that's not going to distract from the greater issues and points. And you don't want to get pulled into a red herring, distracting discussion that is only, benefiting Republicans. So if you want that messaging resource, please DM me and I will do my best to send you all that link. Okay. And I think that is about it as far as the voting rights stuff. Voter education is going to be huge. We'll talk about that another time and how you can be involved in helping people understand the best way to vote, since all these voter suppression laws have gone through across the country. But one thing I did want to talk about before I wrap up, and first, just to recap, I'm here as an urgent call to action to ask that you please go to StaceyAbrams.com and either max out on your contribution if you can. You got to like that, and you can. Please do. Don't wait, or donate whatever you can, $1, $2, $5, whatever, as soon as possible, because there's a bill that's I'm just going to recap very briefly. There is a bill in the Georgia legislature that will give Brian Kemp an edge in fundraising. Because this bill that he wants to become law says that nobody running for office can raise money while the Georgia State Legislature is in session, but yet Brian Kemp will still be able to raise money through his leadership committee, which is a law that he, put into place. So he can continue to raise millions of dollars. And then everybody else, including Republicans, will have to be sidelined until April or even longer after that, once the Georgia State Legislature is out of session. So urgent, 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 donate what you can to Stacey Abrams and to all candidates in Georgia as soon as possible, because this bill can pass and then be signed into law anytime. It can happen today, tomorrow, whatever. So that's why I'm coming on here. Okay, so another thing I did want to address, let's see real quick. I think this is the last thing I'm going to talk about today, is that I received this information from Color of Change. Excellent organization. They were actually the first organization that I ever made a political online donation to back in, I don't even know, 2000, whenever Hurricane Katrina happened. I think, because I was even still living in Chicago at that time. It was maybe 2004 or something like that. And they did a lot of work around Hurricane Katrina and a lot of support there. And so they were just starting off, and this was literally the first organization or any organization I ever made an online political donation to. And so Color of Change has been around. What they have been talking about recently are all these anti-protesting bills. So again, if you are in the chat, I don't know, maybe people can't see what I'm doing here. That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and drop their link down here. I think they're colorofchange.org. And then I'm going to drop the StaceyAbrams.com. and so on and so forth. Okay, so Color of Change has been talking about, and I'm going to hopefully see if I can get somebody from Color of Change to join us for season 2 of Grassroots Voices, but there's all these anti-protesting bills. So let's go back to 2020. In the middle of a pandemic, we saw millions of people around the world take to the streets in historic numbers, and they were part of one of the longest, largest, and most sustained movements to stand up for Black lives in the history of this country and in the world, because there were people protesting around the world. Since then, there have been anti-protesting bills introduced. So the states I know of for sure, there could be more, Well, there are more actually, but but the states I'm gonna mention are Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Arkansas, Iowa, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Kansas, and Montana and Alabama. So since the George Floyd protest, protesting his murder and police brutality and standing up for Black lives, there have been over 100 anti-protesting bills proposed across the country. All of them have not gone through or will go through, but some absolutely have. And it's very chilling to see what they're trying to do in terms of trying to prevent people's constitutional right to assemble and to speak their voice. So 13 of those bills have been passed in 22, or have been passed already. And then in 2022, this year, there are several bills that have either been newly introduced or reintroduced. So let me just tell you a little bit, because a lot of times, you might just hear, okay, anti-protesting, but you really need to understand what that looks like. So some of these anti-protesting laws that have been proposed and that have also passed grant immunity to people who are driving and who run into protesters with their cars. Also, there's been immunity granted to people who use force against a protester, similar to how Kyle Rittenhouse decided to go and assist, et cetera, in Wisconsin. So that is very concerning. Because we already see that, certain people and certain sides, when they don't get what they want, they will resort to violence. So some of these laws have been backed by various organizations that are affiliated with police unions. They're attempting to criminalize free speech and punish those people who are speaking up for Black people, Indigenous, and people of color, even thinking of Standing Rock, and a lot of the work that a lot of Indigenous activists and people were doing during Standing Rock. Also, they offer very specific protections, some of these bills, for counter protests, people who are trying to harm the protesters. Okay, so police unions have been advocating for these anti-protest bills in at least 14 states. And these bills have been proposed in at least 9 states, and they include sponsorship from current and former law enforcement. So I just want to give you a sample from Color Change. They were sharing this information the other day. So some of these laws include provisions that would strip people of public benefits, including the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP. And it can also strip people of unemployment benefits if they are convicted of violating these anti-protest bills. So if you protest, your constitutional right to protest as an American, you can be punished. And then not just punished, but punished and certain benefits can be taken away from you, which can directly impact your ability to survive and feed your family, et cetera, et cetera. We know a lot of women, use the SNAP program, and a lot of people need their unemployment benefits, especially since we're in a pandemic and a lot of people's income security has been shaken up. Okay, so then in Tennessee, there's a law that would make it a felony for demonstrators to camp outside of the state capitol. And if they do that and they violate these anti-protesting laws, those people could lose their right to vote because in Tennessee, I guess if you have a felony, then you lose your right to vote. So again, these are, a very strange response to a huge, one of the largest global peaceful protesting global movements that we have ever seen in history. Also in Florida, Oklahoma, Iowa, they all have granted immunity to drivers who run into protesters with their cars. There's also a bill in Indiana that would ban anyone who was convicted a proposed bill in Indiana where if someone has violated this anti-protesting law, they can be banned from, and they're convicted of the law, they can be banned from getting a state job in Indiana or running for elected office. So when you think about somebody like Representative Cori Bush out of Missouri, she was an organizer, I believe, but definitely very boots on the ground and very much involved in Ferguson and everything that happened there. And she continued to organize and be involved. And then eventually she ran for office, and then she won in 2020. And she won, and she's now in Congress. So someone like her, if she protests in Indiana and is, she's convicted of not following the law with this anti-protesting law, then she's convicted, she could not even run for office. Here in Georgia, these anti-protesting provisions would create civil immunity for a volunteer who uses or threatens to use violence or force against a protester. So it's so important that we know what's going on with these bills. If you live in any of those states, know where your state stands when it comes to protesting. Also consider contacting the White House as well as the Department of Justice and urging the Department of Justice to use all the power that they have in that office to condemn these laws and to support any kind of legal and advocacy efforts to fight them. So this is why I wanted to come on here today. So again, we have a lot of work to do. Thank you to everybody who's been, very involved and paying attention. Continue to rest up in February and, parts of March, but things are starting to heat up and things are happening very quickly. So please consider how you want to be involved with our Facebook groups. Please consider how you want to be involved this year regarding the midterms. If you're going to do what you did last time, great. If you need to rethink your strategy, start doing that. I am looking for admins, moderators to help us because we need more help, and we need to give a break to those people who have so graciously served our groups for the last several years leading up to this moment. So please, you can DM me, you can leave a comment under this video if you like. But we really have to start thinking about what role we want to play and what we want to do. If it's donating money, if it's going to a certain state, like if you're planning to come to Georgia or any other state to help us out, you need to know, when is early voting starting? When is the primary going to be? When is the election? You need to know these dates. You need to start planning, asking for days off, figuring out your travel, saving money to come travel, deciding which states or which candidates and campaigns you want to focus on because you don't want to stretch yourself too thin. And so just really thinking about what role you want to play, because you absolutely have power. You absolutely can influence things. And so many people in this group I've just seen over the last couple of years have absolutely influenced the results that we've seen here in Georgia and other places. So thanks again for listening. Please like this video, please share it, especially if you live in Georgia. Please put that call to action out. If you support Stacey Abrams or Senator Warnock, or want to make sure that we have a good Secretary of State, like B. Wynn, who is running for Secretary of State here in Georgia. All of this is important. Everything that happens in 2022 is going to impact 2024. 2022 is actually going to be probably even more important than, I won't say more important, but what happens in how things turn out and what happens in 2022 is going to be more important, because it's absolutely going to set up things for 2024. There's a direct connection. So again, making sure that you're supporting the candidates early and giving them as much time to budget and to come up with their strategies and everything else. And I just really, I'm always going to be extra for Stacey Abrams, because she literally, yes, obviously there were so many people who helped in Georgia for decades, but she really did the heavy lifting when it was needed, when it came to 2020, really explaining the absentee and vote by mail process to people during the pandemic, and lending her trustworthy voice to the voting process, also especially during the runoffs. And even if you're not in Georgia, but you want to support Stacey, I feel like everybody in this country who wanted Trump out and who believes in democracy, we owe a great debt to her and the work that she has done, and the work that she continues to do to support other local organizations and other groups across this country to make sure that everybody has access to the ballot. So we have to come through for her. Drop a grassroots donation at stacyabrams.com. Sign up for her campaign by putting your email into her system. And then, thanks, Nicole, for dropping that link. And then, yeah, we'll keep you updated here. And again, I hope to start Grassroots Voices back up in the spring. And again, if you want to moderate or be an admin or just figure out ways you could be more helpful in the group, please DM me or drop a comment down into the comment section. Okay, thank you so much for taking the time with me today. Again, my name is Robin Donaldson, based here in Georgia, and I'm the the founder of Team Stacey Abrams Grassroots for One Georgia, as well as Team Georgia Blue. Please support our other Facebook sister groups, the Afro Rural Progressive Facebook group. The other group is Stacey Abrams Fair Fight Club, Defend and Elect Warnock Facebook group. And I think those are all of our groups right there. Oh, and of course, the People for Stacey Abrams is not a group, but it's a page. So please join all of those groups and keep in touch. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and enjoys themselves. Get some rest. Spend time with family and friends, because it really is going to be time to really hit it this spring in order to make sure that we can hold on to our democracy again come the fall. So again, thanks so much. Have a great day.